Greetings, everyone. I hope you are doing well. The task-based approach and the competency-based approach are two of the most popular and commonly practiced methods of English language teaching. Both methods focus on developing learners' communicative competence, enabling them to use the language they learn in everyday tasks and daily interactions. My name is Yahya Jdiani, and in today's presentation, we're going to focus on the theory as well as practice of these two methods. This presentation was done with the help of my colleagues Malika Budalh and Yasin Bousaida and was supervised by our trainer Mr. Ahmed Atla. Before we begin our presentation, take a minute to reflect on the following focus questions. So, without further ado, I'm going to give the stage to my colleague Yasin Bousaida, so he can give you a brief overview of the task-based approach.
Hello everyone, my name is Bousaida Yasin. I am a teacher trainee at CRMF in Ghana. In this video, I am going to introduce to you one of the most important approaches in the field of language teaching and learning. This approach is called task-based approach. So the outline of my presentation will be like this. First, the definitions, then the key features of task-based approach, then the features of tasks, the types of tasks, the stages of the task-based approaches lesson, and finally the limitations. So before we start defining what is the task-based approach, we should know what is a task first. So a task is a piece of classroom work that involves learners in comprehending, producing, or interacting in the target language while their attention is focused on using their grammatical knowledge to express meaning. So the task is done inside the classroom and it focuses on the meaning. It provides opportunities for students to use their knowledge, the knowledge they have, to understand what they are doing. Now the task-based approach, or simply the TBA, is an approach in which learning is based on the completion of meaningful tasks, and those tasks provide learners with opportunities and chances to explore language, be it written language or spoken language. The task-based approach emphasizes the use of authentic and functional and practical tasks as the main unit of planning, and instruction in language teaching. By doing tasks, students will acquire the language through using it in a meaningful way. Now we move to the features of task-based approach. Just from the name, we see that task-based approach is task-based and it focuses on the process rather than the product, which means it deals with how students do things and how they manage to complete the tasks. Another feature is that using the target language is obligatory while doing the task. And another feature is that task-based approach is a learner-centered approach. Unlike the traditional methods, as you know, such as grammar translation method or audiolingual method, which are teacher-centered approaches. In the task-based approach, learners are responsible for their learning. They are active and producers of the target language. Also, the task-based approach, it emphasizes the experiential learning, or we can call it also learning by doing. So students are involved in the process of learning. Also, the task-based approach emphasizes communication and negotiation while doing the task, and also the TBA. In the TBA, teacher's role is to choose the appropriate tasks because they know the level of their students, and also they monitor students' learning while they are doing the tasks. On the other hand, the student's role is to communicate with their peers to complete the task in their group works or pair works to communicate and negotiate and discuss in order to find solution to the tasks. Now let's move to the features of tasks. Because tasks are the core or the backbone of this approach, we should know the features of the task. First, tasks should be meaningful and relevant to the student's learning. Second, tasks should have both a clear purpose and a clear outcome. For instance, I'm teaching a course or a lesson which is designed to help students develop job-seeking skills. So the objective is to help students to develop how to search for a job. Also, a task should provide opportunities for students to exchange information, be it exchanging information they already have with new ones or exchanging information they have with other students. Finally, a task has to be authentic and linked to the learner's real life. Now let's move to the types of tasks. After we saw how tasks should be, now we are going to see what kinds of tasks or activities we use in the task-based approach. First, information gap tasks, which involves the exchange of information among students in order to complete the task. So these are tasks in which one or a group of students has one set of information and another students or a group of students has a complementary set of information. They negotiate and exchange those information in order to complete the task. Second, opinion gap tasks. Students express their personal attitudes, ideas, knowledge to complete the task. Then problem-solving tasks. In this kind of task, students are given a problem and they try to find solutions. And the fourth type of task, decision-making task. Students are given a problem that have multiple or a number of possible outcomes, then they must decide which one is correct. For example, multiple choice exercises or QSM exercises. Now we move to the stages or procedures of task-based lesson. There are 4 stages to follow when building a lesson under the task-based approach. The first one is the pre-task, then the during, then the preparation task, then the during and the post-task. The first stage is the pre-task. In the pre-task here, the teacher prepares students for the upcoming tasks by activating their schemata or their background knowledge and contextualizing the topic of the lesson by using, for example, word-word brainstorming and elicitations and etc. The second stage is task preparation. In this stage, teacher prepares students to do the task by giving them a clear instructions and help them understand the objectives behind doing those tasks. And the third stage, which names are the during stage, this is the most important stage in task-based approach. In this stage, students try to perform tasks in pairs or in small groups. Here the focus is on communication and meaning and not the form. And finally, the post-tasks. In the post-task, in this stage, there is a kind of evaluation of the student's performance. Usually the teacher reflects on students' performances by giving feedback or correction about the form of the language used. Now, despite the fact that task-based approach has many advantages and strengths, it has also some weaknesses or limitations such as insufficient focus on form. As we have seen, The task-based approach focuses more on the meaning and communication and somehow neglects the form and grammatical features. Then the examination issues or examination problems. For example, students who are studying under the task-based approach don't focus too much on the grammar. But when it comes to the national exam, they will find it difficult to answer the grammar exercises. Also, loaded classes, class of 35 or 40 at least. They cannot do group work or pair work. They can't perform all of them.
Now that you've had the opportunity to learn more about the task-based approach, it's time to review some of the things you've learned. Take 10 seconds to answer each of the following questions. Question number 1. In the task-based approach, students are always asked to do meaningful tasks. In this context, meaningful tasks refer to A. Tasks that allow students to practice the language they learn. B. Tasks that develop students' fluency and self-confidence. C. Authentic tasks that prepare students for real-life interactions. The correct answer is C. Authentic tasks that prepare students for real-life interactions. Although the two first outcomes are very desirable in the task-based approach, the most essential type of practice is one that is both contextualized and that equips students to use language in real-life situations. Question number 2. What is the role of the teacher in the task-based approach? A. An instructor and guide who monitors students' tasks for grammatical accuracy. B. A facilitator who chooses appropriate tasks and monitors students' learning. C. The source of information and sole authority in the classroom. The correct answer is B. A facilitator who chooses appropriate tasks and monitors students' learning. In the task-based approach, the role of the teacher is to provide proper guidance and adjust learning materials and tasks according to students' needs. Now for the last question. What are the types of tasks used in the task-based approach? Can you remember the types of tasks mentioned in Yasin's presentation? Some of the tasks used in the task-based approach are information gap tasks, opinion gap tasks, or problem-solving tasks. Good. Now it's time to see the task-based approach in action. The following vocabulary lesson about idioms contains practical examples of some of the tasks used in the task-based approach. As you can see, tasks are contextualized as much as possible in order to teach students idioms in their appropriate social context. At this stage of the lesson, students should have already gone through the pre-task stage, in which they should have been well instructed in the subject matter, and the preparation stage, in which they should have been given clear instructions on what they're supposed to do. In this stage, which is the during stage, students collaborate together to finish the task they have been assigned with. Exercise number 1 is a typical example of a problem-solving task, requiring students to identify the meaning of the idiom and then trying to match it with the correct sentence. Exercise 2 is a good example of an opinion gap task, in which students are asked to express their opinion or personal preference about a certain issue. In our example, the idioms. This may be called an instance of personalization as well. The final task is an information gap activity, in which students have to exchange information to complete a certain task. In this example, students must act out an idiom in front of their colleagues in order to convey its meaning in the fastest way possible. Another pertinent example of an information gap activity is the popular game Bingo, in which participants have to go around asking each other about their personal information until they are able to match certain facts in order to win the game. Here is a video from a task-based vocabulary lesson in which you can see all of these exercises in practice. Just like the model problem-solving task we've just seen, students are asked to guess the correct meaning of some expressions related to travel by matching them with the right sentence. Notice how students are encouraged to collaborate together to complete the task.
And you're going to find the meaning of some expressions. Okay? Please keep one pass the rest around. So instead of me telling you what these vocabulary words mean, it's going to be your job to find it. There are 10 sentences, and the expressions are in bold. Do you guys know what in bold means? What does it mean?
Like a highlight.
Like highlighted. They're in dark black, a little bit fatter letters. Okay? And those are the expressions. The meanings for the expressions are all mixed up underneath. So what you need to do with your partner is match the sentence with the expression to the meaning of the expression. Any questions? Off you go. Time to do the work. So make sure you check with your partner. I want to hear a lot of talking here.
The next task is actually a combination of both information gap and opinion gap activities. Students are given a set of expressions and are asked to order them from what they think is most negative to what they think is least negative. At the same time, they cannot do that without learning the expressions that have been given to each individual.
Okay? Now, what I'd like you to do is I'm going to give you some expressions that are used to talk about, remember we said we're going to talk about traveling, and we're going to talk about the not so good side of traveling. Everybody likes to talk about the good side of traveling. Oh, where do you want to go? You know, I want to go to the beach, I want to travel the world, I want to see this country, that country. But that's used a lot. I want to talk about something that is not so discussed. The not so good side of traveling. So in order to talk about that, you're going to need certain words, certain expressions. So I'm going to give you each an expression, and I'm going to ask you to stand up, come to the front, and organize yourselves in a line, yes, from the expression that is the most negative. This one is the one that doesn't work. So on this side, the most negative expression to the least negative expression. Okay? So the most negative to the least negative.
Annoyed is very upset. Drives me up the wall.
I think both will
Oh, it's like it's driving.
So I list.
I'm less than him.
Less. Yes.
I'm less than him.
Your expression is less negative than this. That's what I want to say.
Now that we're done with the practical aspect of the task-based approach, it's time to move on to the competency-based approach. I'll leave you with my colleague Malika, who will give you a rundown of the most fundamental concepts of the competency-based approach.
Hello everyone, my name is Marika Butla. I'm a teacher trainee at the Ceramic of Innsbruck. Today I'm going to present competency-based approach. The outline of my presentation is definitions and background, the aim of competency-based approach, key features of competency-based approach, learning dynamics and then limitations. So what is competency-based approach? Competency-based approach is also known as competency-based language teaching. It is the application of the principles of competency-based education to language teaching. The origin or background. Competency-based education is an educational movement which emerged in the United States in 1979. This movement presents a pattern that is focused on the outputs of learning. The competency-based language teaching or learning follows the ideology of competency-based education and is perceived as a powerful agent which can have a positive impact in teaching. Competency-based education or competency-based language teaching focuses on the learning outcomes rather than the classroom practices, which means that it shifts attention away from methodology to students' performance. Therefore, competency-based language teaching is a performance-based instruction with which the goal is to address what learners are expected to do with the language rather than what they know about it. The aim of competency-based approach. Competency-based approach puts higher emphasis on the mastery of specific practical competencies needed for the attainment of specific goals. So what is competency or competencies? Competencies are skills, knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors that students possess at the end of the learning process that will help them to perform in real-life situations. The aim of competency-based approach is to prepare students to be competitive and equipped with those skills to perform a certain task or to function in order to function in their socio-cultural context. And the general idea of competency-based approach is to focus on objective and observable outcomes or outputs which can be easily measured. The key characteristics of competency-based approach. It is a focus on successful functioning in society, which means that the goal is to enable students to become autonomous individuals, able to cope up with the demands of the world. A focus on life skills, that is to say, it teaches language as a function of communication about concrete tasks, and students are taught just those language skills required by the situation in which they function. Third, task performance outcome-centered orientation. That is to say, what counts is what students can do as a result of instructions. Modularized instruction. That is to say, objectives are broken into narrowly focused sub-objectives so that both teachers and students can get a clear sense of the progress. Fifth, outcome that are made explicit a priori, which means that they are specified in terms of behavioral objectives so that students know exactly what behaviors or skills are expected of them. Continuous and ongoing assessment, which means that program evaluation is based on test results and as such is considered objectively quantifiable. Demonstrated mastery of performance objectives. Rather than the traditional paper and pencil tests, assessment is based on the ability to demonstrate pre-specified behaviors or skills. Individualized and student-centered instruction. That is to say, instructions are not time-bound or time-based, and students progress at their own rate and concentrate on just those areas in which they lack competence. Moving on, learning dynamics, the role of teacher. Within the framework of competency-based approach, the teacher is facilitator instead of the source of knowledge. The teacher should provide students with the interesting activities, clear instructions, and opportunities to engage in the construction of the knowledge. The teacher has to select learning activities and design syllabus according to the competency students are going to acquire, as well as to provide them with positive and constructive feedback to improve their competencies. The following quote explains clearly the role of teachers. Ideal teachers are those who use themselves as bridges over which they invite their students to cross, then having facilitated their crossing, joyfully collapsed, encouraging them to create bridges over their own. Moving on to the role of learners. Learners are active constructors of knowledge rather than passive receivers, which is underlined by the fact that students are expected to perform the acquired skills. Students have to master one competency before moving to the other in order for them to be able to adapt and transfer knowledge from one setting to another. Students are encouraged to question, challenge, and initiate learning efforts, as well as to take care of their own learning in order to develop learning autonomy. The activities, materials, and syllabus. From its features, it is evident that competency-based language teaching is based on interactional and communicative perspective of the nature of language. Thus, syllabus must include communicative activities that allow students to practice the necessary skills. Competency-based language teaching focuses on the outputs and seeks to teach language in conjunction with social contexts in which it is used. Learning outcomes thus underpin the curriculum framework and syllabus specification. Now, competency-based approach plays an important role in a way that it encourages or it enhances students' communicative competencies, as well as preparing them to the real-life situations. However, it has some limitations. The first, competency-based language teaching doesn't have clear and valid procedures to develop competency for most programs, since it pays attention more to the outcomes rather than the learning process. Second, it represents a rather narrow view of what language proficiency really is, which means that language learning is reduced to a set of lists and such things as thinking skills and cognitive skills are ignored. Third, it requires students to be self-directed learning or learners. That is to say, it requires them to be self-disciplined, self-motivated, and to be able to plan and work independently, which will not be the case for all the students. That is to say, it ignores or it pays less attention to the collaborative work. Then it is a challenge for teachers as it requires more effort from them. That is to say, they should identify and agree upon the most important skills and competencies students should acquire, and also to align them to effective learning resources, as well as to decide upon the best method of assessment and the best way of track students' performance. And the last one, it will not fit the preferred approach and style of many students. And to sum up, we can see that competency-based approach focuses on integration and synthesis of information and experiences in order to create working knowledge that can be used in real life settings. And thank you so much.
I hope you've learned a thing or two from Malika's presentation. Once again, it's time to review some of the things you've learned. Question number 1. What kind of activities must we include in a competency-based language teaching syllabus? A. Communicative activities. B. Problem-solving activities. C. Jigsaw activities. The correct answer is A. Communicative activities. In the competency-based approach, the best type of activities to help students prepare for real-life interaction are communicative activities. This is because the competency-based language teaching focuses on enhancing students' communicative competence, giving them hands-on practical knowledge they can make use of in their everyday lives. Question number 2. What is the quality that students should have in order for competency-based language teaching classes to be successful? A. A good knowledge of linguistic forms. B. Autonomy and a high level of motivation. C. Organization and time management. The correct answer is B. Autonomy and a high level of motivation. Although knowledge of the language goes a long way in helping students excel in their studies, Having a high level of motivation for competency-based language teaching programs is indispensable to achieving autonomy and teaching learners practical language skills. Last question. What is the most important goal of competency-based language teaching? The correct answer is developing students' communicative competence, focusing on what they can do with the language rather than what they know. Competency-based language teaching always focuses on the practical aspect of language instruction. Unless we can see the results of students' learning in performative activities, we cannot be sure that they can make use of what they have learned in real-life communication. The following speaking lesson about ordering food was designed according to the principles of the competency-based approach. As you can see, the language teaching material used by the competency-based approach is always authentic and contextualized. In this example, we have a restaurant menu. Having authentic material as a means of language exposure ensures that learners will be able to associate the language they learn with its proper social context. Since the competency-based approach was first devised to teach adults survival or life coping skills, the type of tasks it makes use of always revolve around performing real-life tasks, such as giving instructions, talking about one's favorite hobbies, or providing personal information. In this example, it's to order food from a restaurant. The objective of this lesson is to teach students how to order food, but before we can do that, we have to teach them a number of micro-competencies first. For example, the aim of the introductory text is to familiarize students with food items in a restaurant menu, as well as helping them pick up certain words that they can use to order food later on. The first exercise aims to teach students how to use the polite form of would like to express politeness when ordering food. The last exercise is usually where we can evaluate whether students are able to accomplish the objective of the lesson or not. If they are able to make a conversation using all of the small competencies they have learned throughout the lesson will have been successful in teaching them how to order food. As a rule, lesson objectives in the competency-based approach are always specific and measurable, just like the ones we usually find in a lesson plan. For example, the objective for this lesson would be something like, by the end of the lesson, students will have learned how to order food using the polite form of requesting would like and a set of vocabulary items from a restaurant menu. You can refer to Bloom's taxonomy to find specific and measurable verbs that can help you write a good lesson objective. The following animated video explores some of the benefits of competency-based language teaching programs, as well as the ways in which they have been implemented in classrooms and universities around the world. Take a look.
Nowadays, students can find information easily and conveniently through the internet and modern technology, and may access information beyond what is required to know during their study years. In order to keep pace with the rapid development of the educational systems, the educational system should be developed to become more flexible and innovative. Competency-based learning, the most important characteristic of this form of flexibility, because this system is measuring learning rather than time. Note, these two academically outstanding applicants who have the highest degrees of intelligence, one of them is studying in a traditional way, and the other one is studying in a modern way which competencies mainly adopted. The system helps greatly to education development, as it is not limited to the traditional method of learning, or from the obligation to attend lectures, or abide by the number of study hours. Student can access academic content online, at any time and from anywhere. On the psychological side, it allows the students to eliminate a lot of stress, such as school fees, and the fuss to get textbooks, and taking exams at a specific time that can be changed, etc. The new modern learning in this system is less cost than the traditional system. It depends on the time of the study, not on the number of subjects taught by student. This system also provides educational support by providing books, links, research, articles, and others online. The system provides the students to choose the test date and timing in accordance with the appropriate time that determined by himself. Thus, the student is forced on gaining information rather than on grades. This method provides interesting learning model and gives the students plenty of time to practice his activities and hobbies, which leads to psychological balance, and that motivate the student to improve and expedite his performance, as it is not related with studying years and passing certain material and articles. Therefore, the student can pass his academic years faster in shorter period, as long as he is fully prepared and efficient to have his educational attainment. In addition, this form of learning helps to choose the material that the student needs to know and study. For students who have full knowledge about certain materials, as a result of their experience and previous readings, students can enter exams, tests directly. To apply this form of education, two essential factors is must. The first factor, changing cultures inherited by breaking the deadlock in traditional educational process of dividing the study to classes, and determine the number of learning hours which cannot be overridden. Compliance with the inflexible lectures timetable, and committing to a specific date for the tests which cannot be changed, and other traditional methods. The second factor, the need for attention to new technologies that will help to achieve this aim by using sophisticated programs, communication mechanisms, computers, networks and different forms, such as audio, graphics, search mechanisms, and electronic libraries, as well as web portals. Human measured by their mental and cognitive developments, and not their age. Who owns the information has the right to lead, and the most capable for leadership. We must therefore equip minds to acquire greater knowledge about the innovative method. Competency-based learning, the optimal model to learning.
I hope you've learned a lot from our presentation about the competency-based approach and the task-based approach. Thank you for your attention and have a good day.